Think positive.
Welcome back to the Ghoul Ambrose podcast, GA for short. I'm your host, Prince. This is a space for inner work, self-improvement, self-discovery, mindset, accountability, integrity, reflection, and personal development. This podcast is built for growth, for honesty, and for becoming a better version of yourself, one day at a time. New episodes drop every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Today's episode is called 4,340, a population where you typically fall in as one. It's normal, but when you try, it's not the same. You can't. Turns out, you are not made to do so. So you stand out from the rest. 4,340. That's all it is. A number. At least, that's what it looks like. But every number represents something. A family, a friendship, a conversation, a dream, a disappointment, a routine, and somewhere inside a population, people begin to learn what is expected of them, not because it's written anywhere, but because expectations have a way of spreading without ever being spoken. You look around, you notice what's accepted, what's praised, what's ignored, and before long, you begin asking yourself a dangerous question. Where do I fit? I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to belong. We all want to feel connected, to know we're seen, to know there's a place where we can simply exist without feeling out of place. That's human. But somewhere, belonging slowly becomes blending. Belonging says, I can be myself here. Blending says, I'll become someone else, if that's what it takes. Those are two completely different conversations. One invites you in, the other slowly removes you from yourself. And without realizing it, your identity becomes a response instead of a discovery. Expectations are interesting. Most of them are never spoken. Nobody hands you a list. Nobody tells you this is exactly who you have to become. You simply observe. You notice the people who are accepted, the people who are admired, the people who seem to fit naturally. And after a while, you stop noticing you're observing. It just becomes normal. Every decision costs something, even the quiet ones. When you exchange honesty for acceptance, something is lost. Curiosity for approval, something changes. When you trade authenticity for comfort, you may gain a seat at the table, but sometimes you leave yourself standing outside. The cost isn't immediate. It's gradual. Years later, you find yourself wondering why life feels so disconnected, why nothing feels completely fulfilling, why every accomplishment still feels incomplete. Maybe it isn't because something is missing. Maybe something was left behind. Not your talent or your ability. Your willingness to simply be yourself. Sometimes the longest journey you'll ever make is finding your way back to the person you stopped introducing to the world. There's something about familiarity. The longer you're around something, the more normal it becomes. Not because it's right, not because it's wrong, because you've seen it enough times. That's why two people can grow up in completely different places and have completely different definitions of what's normal. The environment didn't tell them what to believe. It simply became familiar, a feeling of truth, until you leave it, until you experience something different, until you realize maybe there was never just one way to live. There was never just one way to think. There was never just one way to become. Sometimes it takes stepping outside of what's familiar to finally see it for what it is. Once you realize that familiarity isn't the same as truth, you begin to see yourself differently. Maybe you were never falling behind. Maybe you were just walking a path that wasn't familiar to the people around you. And that's okay. Not everything that stands apart is meant to be corrected. Some things stand apart because they were never meant to blend in. Different doesn't always look loud. Sometimes different is the person who refuses to settle, the person who keeps asking questions, the person who sees possibility where everyone else sees limitation, the person who's willing to leave what's comfortable to discover what's calling them. Being different isn't about proving people wrong. It's about no longer needing to prove yourself right. Because once you know who you are, you stop competing with who everyone else expects you to be. And that's where freedom begins. I hope you found something worth taking with you today. Maybe a new perspective, maybe a moment to pause and reflect. Thank you for being here and sharing this space with me. Your presence matters. If this resonated with you, share it with someone you care about, because growth spreads through connection. I'll see you next time. Take care of yourself. Stay grounded. And as always, be safe.